Welcome to Friends and Fiction. 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories. Novelists Mary Kay Andrews, Kristin Harmel, Kristy Woodson Harvey, and Patti Callahan Henry are 4 longtime friends with more than 70 published books between them. Together, they host Friends and Fiction, with author interviews and fascinating insider talk about publishing and writing, to highlight and support independent bookstores. They discuss the books they've written, the books they're reading now, and the art of storytelling. If you love books and you're curious about the writing world, you're in the right place.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Friends and Fiction Show. I'm Patti Callahan Henry.
I'm Kristin Harmel.
I'm Kristy Woodson Harvey.
And I'm Mary Kay Andrews.
And this is Friends and Fiction. 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories to support indie bookstores, authors, librarians, and readers like you.
If you're not with us already, we hope you'll join our Facebook group, which is nearly 300,000 members strong. We'd also like to invite you to follow us on Instagram and YouTube and to subscribe to our Substack newsletter, which is full of awesome bonus content. You can find out more about our community and all we have to offer at friendsandfiction.com.
Tonight, on this episode, we are so excited to welcome Francesca Serritella to discuss her new novel, our Friends and Fiction August Pick of the Month, Full Bloom, which was just released August 5th. We'll talk about inspiration, writing with her mom, our pal, Lisa Scalini, and perfume, and we'll definitely talk about perfume.
But remember, we are live tonight, so that means we can take your questions for our guest in real time. So don't forget to drop anything you might like to ask Francesca into the comments.
And guess what? We'll have a surprise guest coming on at the end, so make sure you stick around.
Can I play the drum roll before she comes?
Yeah.
You would be disappointed if you didn't.
It's kind of mandatory. All right. Before we bring Francesca on and introduce her, we're going to talk to her about this question. But the perfume in this novel, Full Bloom, has this power to make Iris, the main character, visible to people who had paid her no mind. And it made me think about the things that make us feel seen. Mm-hmm. And putting out a novel is one of those very things. And sometimes it's scary. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's thrilling. Sometimes it's a combination. I want us to talk about quickly. I think people always wonder, how does it feel when your book is coming out and it's that time and there's no way not to be seen, right? It's all out there. Mary Kay, take it away. You go first, since you have the next one.
I'm always nervous and angsty and scared, but I'm excited to see, how my little book baby is being received.
Yeah.
After more than 3 decades of pub days, I'm not quite as terrified, if only because, and I tell myself this over and over again, I know that my publishing team and I have done our best. We have left nothing undone. And so now it's out of our hands. And so I won't say I don't compulsively check my Amazon ranking, but I'm only allowed to check it twice a day.
At a very specific time.
At a very specific time.
So what happens if you miss that time? Do you have to wait another 12 hours?
We'll have to consult the boss, me. I make the rules and I break them.
I love it.
Oh, Kristin, how does it feel when you know your work is going to be that seen and noticed?
When a book comes out, it's this weird feeling of this thing going from imaginary to real. Like, even though you know the book is real, you know it's coming, like you've seen the cover, you've held a copy in your hands. Like, it's not until you get out there on the road and start talking about it and hearing people talk to you about it that I think it begins to sink in, like, oh my gosh, this is something I have put into the world and it's out there and I can't take it back, like, for good
No,
or
you
for
can't
bad.
take it back.
I mean, but it's you know, I think we put a piece of ourselves in every book. I mean, I don't think we're writing about ourselves. We're not writing characters based on ourselves, but there's a piece of ourselves in each of those books. And so I think each time something comes out and each time you realize it's being seen and you're being seen, it takes a little bit of courage and a little bit of a leap of faith to say, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah. And sometimes it happens before we're even ready.
Yeah.
So I know, right? How about you, Kristy? How does it feel to be seen in that way?
I remember someone saying to me before my first book came out, it's like taking all your clothes off and walking down the street.
Yeah. One of those dreams.
And that's what you dream about for like a month before the book comes out too.
Yeah.
So it's a great comparison. But it is like that. Like, there's this huge sense of vulnerability in like giving this piece of yourself to the world. And I think it's interesting too, because I think I say this like with every book launch, but we write these books from our very specific worldview. And then when someone else reads them, they take them in a wildly different way, like for better or worse, because they're putting in their own life experiences. They're imagining, you know, their house they grew up in or whatever it is. Like, they're putting all their memories and their thoughts into this book. And so it might not resonate with them in the same way that it resonated with you. But I think I probably speak for all of us when I say, you know, kind of what Mary Kay said. I mean, we know by the time a book comes out, we have done everything we can to put our very best story on the page. And we have a lot of people behind us who have done the same. And so just have to close our eyes and jump, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I disassociate in a way, right? I have to almost, when I read a review, which I try not to do, or somebody's talking about it, I kind of disassociate. Like, it's now separate of me, right? There's this pulling back in a way. But before we dive into full bloom, talking about being seen, Kristy, you have to tell us about your announcement, because being seen, we are going to be able to see your stories on the screen.
Well, fingers crossed, right? But yeah,
that's
so
the
exciting.
plan. So tell us about your announcement.
Yeah, so my 2023 book, The Summer of Songbirds, was actually optioned like right after it came out. So this has been kind of in the works for a long time, but they're, you know, these ladies have all been through this, so they know, but sort of the process is something will get optioned. And then depending on who options it, you sort of go out and try to sell it to like a network. And so Hulu is going to be, you know, working on the Summer of Songbirds adaptation. So it's very exciting. So it's in development over there with a really, really great team. And I'm not writing, but I am executive producing, which is exciting. So I get to kind of like be in on some of the fun parts. And I love the writer. She's a really great, it's very similar to the book. So people who like the book will probably like the show. And one of the thing that I loved most about her when I met her, she was like, I have this idea and I wanted to run it by you and make sure that it was okay with you. And there was a whole plot line that was in this book that I ended up taking out because I felt like there was too much in this book. And that was her idea that she wanted to put back in. And I was
my gosh.
Oh my gosh. I was like, yes, this is like the coolest thing ever. So that felt like kind of kismet. But anyway, as we all know, there's a long way to go from here, but you know,
congratulations, Kristy.
Thank you.
Yay. I mean, talk about being seen. So cool.
Yeah.
All right. We could talk about that for a long time, but we have a guest waiting in the wings that we cannot wait to talk about. So let me tell you about Francesca Serritella, and I'm praying I said that correctly. She is the New York Times bestselling author of Ghosts of Harvard, which was nominated for Best First Novel by International Thriller Writers, and she's also the author of a 9-book series of essay collections co-written with her mother, author Lisa Scottolini, based on their Sunday column in the Philadelphia Inquirer.
So fun. Francesca graduated cum laude from Harvard University, where she won multiple awards for her fiction, including the Thomas T. Hoops Prize.
She lives in New York City with her 18-year-old cat, Mimi, and her new puppy, Bobby Baby.
Which we just learned is named after a character in a musical. And that's just so stinking cute.
It totally is. Francesca's new best-selling novel, Full Bloom, was just released on August 5th. And in this stunning novel about ambition and untapped desire, a woman's life is forever changed by a mysterious perfume.
All right, so we're going to stop talking about her and talk to her. So, Sean, could you bring Francesca on, please?
Hello.
Hi. We are so delighted to have you with us on Friends in Fiction, Francesca.
Oh my goodness. The pleasure is mine. Thank you so much for having me.
We are going to have fun tonight. So we don't want to only get to know about this book. You, Francesca, are so fascinating. You star in musicals, you write columns, you've been writing with your mom, and then 5 years ago, your first novel, now Full Bloom. In your acknowledgments, it kind of made me tear up. You thank people, and then you say, from the little girl who dreamed of her words in print.
Oh.
It makes me choke up. So because every single one of us could say that.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about your path to the writing life and to this novel.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for that question. I pour my heart out in every page of this book, but especially the acknowledgments.
I know. I could tell. The hardest part.
I tell it, I'm so grateful to readers for taking some of their precious free time. I know how rare that is. I think reading is a very generous act. So for you to open your heart and take that time to let me in and let this story in, it's like, oh, I just wish I could hug you. And in lieu of being able to squeeze you, I will gush about everybody in the acknowledgement for sure. But yeah, I've always loved storytelling. I've always loved the way that we can connect to each other through stories. And then I had the incredible gift of growing up with my mom, Lisa Scotolini, who I'm very lucky to say that I was not born to a best-selling author. I was born to a beginning one. I watched her change her career from being a lawyer and clerking for a judge, and then chase this dream. I watched her write an entire first novel that never got published. And even though I was only 6 at the time and wasn't fully comprehending that challenge and that probably a heartbreak for her, but what I'll say importantly was it wasn't a big tragedy in our house. She didn't make it like this is a big shameful thing. She just wrote a second novel. And that became Everywhere That Mary Went, her first. And she built that career brick by brick. And it showed me so many important lessons, like that failure is an event, not a definition.
It's information, right?
Writing that down. I'm writing that down.
Exactly, right? The first novel wasn't a legal thriller, so she pivoted. She tried something different. She had no shame about that. She projected no shame about that. And therefore, I think that was one of the greatest gifts I possibly could have gotten. And I got this living demonstration of the perseverance and just work ethic that taking a creative profession seriously takes. And of course, it was a huge privilege to have this process demystified, because I think creative jobs are not the most typical, and it can be so intimidating of like, how does your name get to be on the edge of a spine of a book? And I was so grateful and lucky that I got to have that I got to see how that worked and not find it so scary and chase after it myself. I certainly flirted with other ideas. I mean, I loved the sciences. I loved psychology. I almost thought I was going to be a French literature major. Then I was like, this would be so much more fun if I could just do it in my native language. So I tried to be different, but ultimately, creative writing was always the homework that didn't feel like work.
Oh my gosh, I love
that. What a great
homework that didn't feel like work.
Right.
That's going to be our new hashtag.
Exactly. It's our new tagline. Okay. Well, so now we have to talk about your sophomore novel. So in Full Bloom, a woman's life is forever changed by a mysterious perfume. Reeling from a breakup and overlooked at her job as a lighting designer, Iris Thunegren finds herself stuck, disconnected, and lonely in crowded New York City. Then a mysterious neighbor, an older French woman, makes her a gift. a bespoke perfume, and everything changes. This is so very much about the power of being seen, which is what we were talking about before you came on. So let's talk about how dangerous and how wonderful that can be. So some of us were taught to not be seen, to be quiet, to not make too much of a ruckus. But here Iris is making herself seen and she knows it. So tell us about this power. And also, as we all talked about in the opening, how does this release feel? And has it changed since your debut? Like how it feels to release a book?
Yeah. Well, to the first question about the power of being seen, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the power of being recognized by others and also the power of really knowing yourself. You know, I think this book is very much about desire. It's about connecting to our own bodies, connecting to our body's intelligence, what it knows, what it remembers, but most importantly, what it wants. Because even though it is about being seen, like you say, in a metaphorical sense, I didn't choose an elixir that makes her beautiful. I chose a perfume. And the power of scent has some real specific advantages that I think visual beauty doesn't have. Visual beauty is, as we all know as women, constantly policed and gamed by society in a way that is not meant for women to win. The entire beauty industry is about fixing flaws, that experience of looking in the mirror, separating from yourself. Suddenly you're the critical other looking at yourself in the mirror, at least I am. And I'm just doing a Terminator scan of flaws and room for improvement and maybe small victories if I'm in a really good mood that day. But for the most part, it's like, I'm so separate from my body. It's all about, and even if you could, a beautiful woman is powerful, but you can just as many heads as she'll turn. It's, oh, that dress is a little too short. Oh, she's trying too hard. Oh, she's not dressed appropriately. This and that, it's a nightmare. Fragrance works on us on the most subliminal level, on a level that escapes that type of social mores and rules. It affects people's interpretations of you without their awareness. And also it works equally on the smeller as it does the wearer. Fragrance is the one thing I put on that makes me feel more beautiful, that has nothing to do with how I look. And I think that's why it's so powerful. It's an internal change. It summons our fantasies and our memories. I thought it could be a really powerful external catalyst for that internal change. So that's what I was so loved playing with fragrance and being seen and taking up space in a room. The scent bubble is, how many times are women encouraged to take up more space, right? Normally, not always. So there was a lot swirling that I'm excited to talk more about with fragrance. And then the feeling about the book coming out, I mean, y'all, this is a dream come true, and this is part of it, and you are all giving me this incredible gift. I mean, really, this feels almost like my debut because my last novel came out during lockdown of the pandemic. So I never saw it. I worked on it for a decade, and I never saw the hardcover in a bookstore.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh.
A very tiny heartbreak during a time of massive heartbreak. So it had built-in perspective. It is what it is. And I had the great unexpected boon of because of that, I did Zooms with book clubs. If your book club chose Ghosts of Harvard at the time, I had a little request thing on my website, and I would Zoom with you because I was just desperate to meet readers and to talk to them. And that ended up being something I did for almost a year and a half. And I met with so many book clubs, and it was so more heart stirring than I ever could have gotten at a signing.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing that again with Full Bloom. If your book club chooses Full Bloom, because I appreciate the high stakes pressure of a book club pick. If you make me your book club pick and you enter via my website, I think there's a form on there, then we can do that again, because I want to do that even though we can, things are different now. But this was my first real book tour. So this has been really, really fun and exciting. And it's just been such a dream and so fun that it made the USA Today bestseller list is crazy. So it couldn't have gone better. It exceeded every expectation. I'm really humbled and grateful.
That's
Oh,
amazing.
that's awesome. And we were so happy to see you land on that list. We were all rejoicing with you.
Thank
We
you.
were so
Thank you.
happy for you. So you've talked a little bit about scent, but the premise for this book is so fascinating. And you've said that you had a love affair with perfume and that olfactory sense is not objective, but subjective. And
Yes.
that there are no inherently bad scents. There's even the mapping of the brain that tells us why certain scents are powerful. So I would love to hear a little bit more about this and about your love affair with perfume. And I would especially love to hear what drew you to this world and what you've discovered now that you're a part of it.
Thank you so much, Kristin. Yes. So ever since I was a little girl and looking at my mother's dresser and seeing those glittering bottles, even just the bottles of fragrances, they are an object of desire.
Yeah.
And they certainly were for me because I just felt like they held all the secrets to grown up femininity. Because my mom spritzed perfume at very specific times when she was going out without me. A mysterious world.
She doesn't do that anymore. She doesn't do that.
Right. Well, now we're all perfume freaks. I've completely.
No, she doesn't go out without you anymore.
Oh yeah. I mean, she should. She's so cute. But yeah. So, guys out there, she's adorable. But I always loved it, and I also, like I said, I've been a person who, like so many of us, have had a complicated and not always loving relationship with my body and looks, and that's always been complicated. Any of my millennial sisters out there, they know we came of age through the most toxic media landscape where anybody who was a size, not zero. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy. But even in middle school, fragrance was that thing that I could put on and feel differently and feel good about myself. And I think the connection between fragrance and story and narrative and self-creation, the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, has always been there for me. A perfume can tell a story about where you've been, sort of like a favorite memory, or God, if I pick up my high school signature scent now, it's like I'm right back with my sitting next to my high school.
I need to know what it was. What was your high school signature?
It was Calvin Klein Eternity Purple Orchid.
Oh yeah.
It was like some, late stage flanker of the classic Eternity fragrance. But I absolutely believe that if my high school boyfriend could smell that smell right now, we could break his heart all over again. You know what I mean? Great. And so it can transport you backwards, or you smell it and it tells you a story about where you might go, who you might be. Fragrance and identity have this funny dance where you can smell a new fragrance and go, oh, this is so me. And yet it's a version of you haven't been before. Maybe someone who's more bolder. I have my kind of like boss bitch spiky rose fragrance I wear to my publisher meetings. But then I also have like my first date fragrance that's like either like a sweet little garden rose or like a sweet little airy jasmine that, belies that I'm going to be the most opinionated woman they ever met. Or something that just makes you feel a little sexier, a little naughtier, a little whatever. Like it lets you try on different versions of yourself. And that's what I wanted to put into the book and explore. And like you said, Kristin, like it really does, the way that scent works on us in this immediate, emotional and way has a biological basis. I mean, this is real science. Yeah. Our scent is processed in the limbic system. It's the oldest part of our brain, the most primal parts that like much baser animals have. And it's literally in the base of our skull, in the center of our skull. And it only processes, three things: emotions, memory, and scent.
Wow.
Visual, language, all those things are all prefrontal cortex. This bypasses logic and that conscious mind entirely. It goes right to the source. And that's why a scent can trigger a memory with more intensity, with the immediacy, an even greater immediacy than music or art. Like it just goes right to the heart. Yeah.
I was talking to an actress friend of mine recently, and she mentioned just in passing, she chooses a scent for every character she plays.
Oh, how cool.
So that when she's wearing that scent, she's fully in character. Like it's something that she identifies so strongly with that character, and she takes a lot of time choosing the scent, which
that makes sense.
It's really neat. It kind of goes along with everything you're saying.
Right. The scent really paints a full 360 picture for you. It isn't like just a great blue dress and you're like, oh, that looks nice in my eyes. That's it. This is like, it's a scene, it's a mood. That's what I mean. Like, it's, to me, the marriage between books and fragrance was like very natural, even though it has the irony that I couldn't make this scratch and sniff. So you can't smell it, but I did, I hoped that it would, conjure the imagination for the reader. I actually love reading scent descriptions or watching scent reviews on YouTube, even though I can't smell it, but I just love hearing that because it piques my curiosity and my imagination so intensely.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of specific scents, about, what are we, 25 minutes into the show? About 27 minutes ago, my heart was broken because I thought I hadn't received perfume that the others had received that shipped with your book. And I was like, I didn't get it. And then I realized I did get it and just like an idiot hadn't opened the package yet. So you have this beautiful perfume that you shipped to some people with your book, like people in the publishing world, maybe. But I wanted to hear, you actually designed this perfume for this novel.
Yes.
I would love to hear about that experience. And for those people who cannot smell what I'm smelling right now, which is amazing, can you tell us about the scent itself?
Sure. So when I first thought, like I said, I've always thought perfume and these ideas have been swirling, and I thought I wanted it to be my second book. The first thing I did, I'm really inspired by research. So before I even knew the premise or the main characters or the plot, I was like, I want to do research and I want to do this bucket list trip I've always wanted to do, where I went to Grasse in the south of France, the cradle of European perfumery, and I just marinated in it. I loved it. I soaked everything up. I visited the lavender fields and fields of jasmine and rose de mai. I went to the Museum of Perfumery. I went to distilleries at Fragmard and Gallimard and all these incredible French stuff. And I studied French in college. I'm rusty, but I was fluent. So I had to dust off my French, and I loved it. And while I was there at Gallimard, the oldest continually working distillery since I think I don't remember the date, but a long time, maybe 1740. I worked one-on-one with a professional perfumer, which I think is so cool. They're called a nose. That's literally what they're called in French and in English, a nose or a nez. And she let me sit down at the perfumer's organ, which is what they use, a lot of musical metaphor to speak about fragrance, because we actually lack vocabulary for scent. Yeah. I think because it bypasses our language part of our brain, we don't have that many words. So we speak in a metaphor a lot, and they use a lot of music metaphor. The organ is called that because it's literally like a tiered shelf. So it looks like a musical organ. And you have sort of the head notes, the heart notes, and the bass notes are separated. And what I also thought was so fascinating is I always thought the head note, what makes a top note or head note versus what makes a bass note, just had to do with the amount included. But it's actually dictated by the nature of the chemistry, the chemical makeup of the molecule. A more volatile molecule will break down faster and release its scent quicker and dissipate quicker, whereas a more stable molecule will, last and adhere to the skin differently. And I love that fragrance is this strange juxtaposition of sort of poetry and emotion and romance, and like really hard science and chemistry. And it was just all so fascinating to learn. But so while I was there, I made this fragrance, which I named Près de Moi, which means near to me. And I really just did it for myself and to learn. If I was going to write a professional perfumer character like Madame Rapassine in this book, I wanted to know what she was doing. But then I thought it would be a really fun, so don't be sad, everybody. It was a pre-order promotion where if you pre-ordered Full Bloom and sent me your receipt, I ordered more of the fragrance from France. I purchased it from France. I don't make any money on this. I lose money on this. But because they own the fragrance, even though they keep the recipes. I ordered it in bulk. I personally filled that little bottle and tied on that little tag. I got that bottle from AliExpress, and which then the tariffs made go up. But no, just kidding. And I sent it. But if you missed it, I think I'm going to do the pre-order promotion for the paperback too. So.
Ooh, I might have to get some more.
Or if you're really dying to smell it and you've missed the pre-order promotion, I can give you the info to buy it from Gallimard. But I don't otherwise make it or sell it. It can't be bought anywhere. So it's very special.
It smells absolutely amazing.
I'm so glad.
If I could smell, as soon as I opened the package, I was like, what is happening?
I'm not as gifted as the perfumer in this book. So I'm not sure it's as extraordinary as the one in the book. But it was certainly fun to make and fun to share.
It's delicious.
Wait, before we move on, and MK is we're gonna talk about New York. I want to tap really quickly that you said there's no inherently bad scents. What do you mean by that? Because I can name some.
Counter to what we think, right? You're already thinking like poop, death, bat. No, actually,
dead animal on my dog.
They are learned associations. Like a baby, or actually, you don't start thinking that your poop stinks until you're like age 8, which is wild. But you might learn when your parents are like, yucky, ew. Then you're like, oh, yucky, ew. You associate that with something bad. Even the scent of death, which feels like it's so primal, it is primal, but it is a primal association. It is not objectively bad. It's not actually harming our noses. There's no like noxiousness to the scent of death. There's just the recognition that it might signal danger. It might signal just our mortality, which we are that uncomfortable with. There's even some studies that maybe some of this could be generationally passed down, but it is not. It still remains a subjective sense. And also that even a really disgusting scent, if you're smelling it at the same level, after 15 minutes, you will go nose blind to any scent. Now again, like that, if it's coming in and out, it won't. But if you were, and I thought that was a really interesting metaphor in this book. I talk about it in the prologue because
smoke. Yeah.
And just that concept that like there's a lot of things that we live with as human beings, and bad things that have happened in our past or challenging situations. And sometimes when we live with them, no matter how bad they are, we get used to them and we no longer detect them anymore. What happens when we go nose blind to those dangers? I thought was something this book has a lot of fun stuff about perfume in it, but it's still
a lot to it.
It's not about perfume or scent, it's about people. And I was really interested in all these metaphors and the way scent could get us into that topic and be a proxy for instinct and a lot of different kinds of things.
Yeah.
Well, you did it beautifully. Now, let's talk about New York, because it comes so alive in this novel. And I'm going to read you a line. A city shower ran through the sieve of overstuffed municipal trash bins, drenching their contents to fetid sludge. I do love the word fetid.
Yeah.
From the aromas to the brownstones to the neighbors and to the doormen. It really is a quintessential New York City novel. Talk to us about how you integrated this city in such a fascinating way. How long have you lived in the city? And then I'll ask you another question.
Okay, yeah. I thank you for reading that passage. I'm glad that you liked it. It was a little tip of the hat to Jonathan Swift's Ode to a City Shower or something, which I think is always one of the greatest disgusting city descriptions. But I loved setting this book in summer in the city because it is a stinky place. It's yes, you can smell your fabulous perfume when you're going out, but you can also smell that trash and smell the urine-soaked subway. And you can, it's just like it blooms with some things that you don't want to smell. But I also think the city is so vibrantly alive and also vibrantly sort of on edge in the summer. And I wanted to explore that. I've lived in New York for, since the very end of the year 2008, I think 16 years, coming up on 17. And I love it, and it has been challenging, and it's been everything. It's an intense place with a lot of tension, and this book explores that the haves and have-nots live cheek by jowl in New York City. It's an ant farm. It is incredibly packed, and what happens when like you live close enough to see in the window of someone who has everything you want?
Yeah.
And that's true for every socioeconomic level. Like there's some comparison that you could torture yourself with. It's this book will take you to both ends of the spectrum, in the peaks of luxury and exclusivity in Manhattan, in the Hamptons, and it will take you to the dire mismanagement of public housing, to tenant harassment for elderly rent-controlled residents. Like it spans the whole thing because we live with the whole thing. And I think, to me, there was some commonality between the personal disassociations that this main character as a woman has and grapples with, and the way the fragrance kind of tries to help reintegrate her in her body, reintegrate her in her life, and the disassociation that living in a city with that level of income inequality creates as well. Like, what does it take to feel safe and at home in our bodies? What does it take to feel safe and at home in our home? And what does it take to feel safe and at home in our community?
Now, thinking about safety,
Yeah,
we know that several years back, you were the victim of a mugging.
I was.
In the city. Has that found its way into your fiction? Either the feeling or the explicit event itself?
Yeah, I think in some ways that could have even been an initiating action for this book, even as it happened almost a decade ago. Yeah, even I call it a mugging, and I'll tell you that's somewhat euphemistic in that I wish somebody had said, "Give me your wallet." Instead, it was just an extremely violent physical assault where I thought I was in the fight for my life, and I think I was.
Francesca, gosh.
Yeah, and longtime readers of the column might remember me talking about it or writing and go, "Oh, was it that bad?" I'll tell you, I wasn't even able to fully write about it, how scared I was, because I wanted to write a narrative that was triumphant, and I did survive it. And after I survived it, I felt catastrophic relief is what I would describe the emotion. I felt absolutely bulletproof. I didn't want to go to the hospital. I didn't want to do anything. I was just like, I felt like I could lift up a frigging car.
Wow. All that adrenaline.
Yes.
Right.
And I couldn't stop shaking for almost 48 hours. And when I saw myself at the hospital, I didn't even recognize my face. I mean, I was completely blown up in every possible way. So then I was like, oh, I see why they insisted on putting me in an ambulance. I thought I was fine. I can't tell you how completely delusional I was. And I was also, it happened blocks from my home. It happened in a beautiful neighborhood. It happened in front of the Sex and the City exterior facade, if you know that house.
Unbelievable. How ironic.
It's so strange to see people the next day. I was so, I think, panicked that assault would change I was so proud of myself to live alone in New York City and to be an independent woman. And then to be frightened like that, I was so fearful that what if this changes this part of my identity that I don't want to be a victim. I didn't want that identity. And so even the very, maybe 2 days after when I was out of the hospital and I wanted to go back to the spot where it happened. I wanted to show my mom in daylight, but it had some sort of I wanted to see it with the lights on to defang it. And I took a picture giving the finger to my camera like a crazy person, but I was trying to be so strong and trying to connect to being defiant. And it was so strange to wait in a line with tourists to take photo on a sidewalk that had my blood on the sidewalk. But people don't know, right? That's New York. That's New York. That's the New York that's in this book, right? And when I went there, I was so trying to connect with this defiant strength and everything. And I remember when I went to the DA's office, I had to go down to the courthouse and to try to do stuff for the case, which was pointless, and also to fill out a victim compensation statement. When I was filling thing where you have to fill, and every other question was, in the case of deceased victim, answer this. I felt so guilty and unworthy to even be asking. It was just to get my ambulance bill paid by the state. But I got up and left. I left. Now, clearly I was dealing with a trauma response, right? And I just couldn't even own it. And it wasn't until I then spent some time away from the city. I went on book tour for my next book. I moved the books with my mom and tried to half talk about it and half not. I still had bandages on, but I could cover them. And it was all just so messed up. And then I had a panic attack before going back to the city. And it took me 2 more years of occasional panic attacks before I went to therapy. But I will tell you that whole experience of how do I integrate, how do I feel good about myself? How do I feel safe in my body again? Yeah. Women, you go around in a women's body long enough, you will encounter some dings. That isn't even the only time I've been assaulted. It's just been the only time I've been assaulted by a stranger. And when you live inside a crime scene, how do you trust that body? How do you trust that gut again? Even though you should, even though other people harming you is not your fault. But that certainly is something that went into this novel, and recognizing that sometimes when we build walls within ourselves to protect ourselves, we are also, that numbness, that post-traumatic numbness is also walling out pleasure and joy and connection. And sometimes what we think is keeping us safe is really holding us back. And I just wanted to explore all of that. I wanted to ask a really provocative questions too about what does asking for it look like? You know, when you're female attractiveness can be a superpower and it can be a target on your back. Yeah. And they were very clear with me, the detective, when I was like, I don't know why I wasn't drunk. I wasn't doing this. I was just coming home. I wasn't that late. They were like, you're a woman walking. That's why you were targeted. You're a woman walking. And they told me also that with men, most criminals brandish a weapon and ask for the money. They go, give me your wallet. With a woman, they just try to knock you out because it's easier.
Wow.
But they didn't knock me out because I'm from Philly.
So am I, by the way. I'm from Philly too.
Right. But yes,
strong, baby. Philly strong.
And you can be strong. You can have taken some damage and have some scars and still be beautiful and still be powerful. And all of that can be the beautiful, you know, pyramid of your lovely and alluring fragrance. And that's what I really wanted to explore in this book.
I love that. What an answer.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
You are one badass, Francesca Serritella. All right. We're gonna shift gears a little bit, although I think we're all like really
sorry, I know this is
really touched. Really touched by your bravery.
Yeah.
So we've talked about your mom, who we all love, Lisa Scottolini. You were both on the USA Today list, right next to each other. You couldn't have even tried to do that on purpose, right? That was so amazing and such a great, synchronicity. But speaking of your mom, can she join us?
Here she is.
You guys, thank you for having Francesca and me back. You know I love you all so much.
Oh, Lisa, it's so good to see you.
Thank you. I have a question to ask from Marion By.
Let's go for it.
The question I wanted to ask is, Francesca, aren't I the greatest mother? A scale of 1 to 10. Am I like a 50?
You're my favorite mom.
But the real question from Marion By is, what would Francesca say to a little girl who is dreaming of having her own words in print? That's a great question.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I would say, dream on, do not, give yourself permission to take yourself seriously.
Yes.
That's
queen,
the best
my queen.
advice ever. So it is absolutely a possibility. So much of this book is about, we have to say yes to ourselves first. And we talk about it with little girls, but I think some grown-up girls need to hear it too, right?
There's
so many things that we want. But I think women are really quick to go, but maybe that's not realistic, or maybe I should moderate that ask, or maybe I should, I'll pick something more reasonable, or I'll start at the beginning and then, but you know what? The universe is not going to reward your humility. Humility is a virtue, but so is bravery and passion and going after it. You have to say yes to yourself first, and you have to let yourself want things and have dreams that aren't guaranteed. You don't know if they'll come true, whether it's a little girl dreaming of seeing her name on the cover of a book, or whether it's a 39-year-old like me dreaming of being a mother, not knowing if that's going to be possible. That's a thing I explore in this book. This character is 35. In the beginning of the novel, she gets the news that her fertility is waning, just as her best friends are all having their second and third kids. I'm living that. This is about daring to want and to going after it, even if you're still scared. So never let yourself be deterred if you want to write, and never let yourself be deterred from anything that you want to go after.
Oh my gosh, standing ovation. Standing ovation.
Well, any little
I have a
girls.
good example.
Sean, can we pull that clip so I can just play it for myself in the morning while I'm washing my face?
I
Welcome
had a whole screen full of terrific, amazing examples in every way. I mean, my God, you guys are walking the walk and talking the talk all the time. I love you all. This is just so good.
Oh, wow. I feel like that should be a graduation speech.
Yeah.
All the things.
I put it in the book where when Madame Rapacine gifts Iris, the main character of the fragrance, she says, that she's giving it to her because I made this perfume because I want you to feel your power and to show the world what you're capable of. But above all, I want you to get what you want. And Iris counters and says, I'd settle for just getting what I deserve. And Rapacine answers, who's to say they are not one and the same? You deserve everything you want. And when I wrote that, even when I read it, I'll put you in the frame, Mom, sorry. I still struggle. Is Rapacine right? Do I deserve everything I want? Can that possibly be true? But it's the wrong question. Women are so quick to ask, do I deserve it? Before we even let ourselves acknowledge how badly we want
it.
Right. And we're so socialized to make ourselves be wanted by other people, be the object of desire, be the valued member of the team, be the linchpin of your family. How am I needed and wanted by others? And that's important and it's human nature. But we count too. What do we want? Whether it's sexual or whether it's professional or whether it's family.
Lisa's face. That was so great.
Wait, well, listen. I'm almost 40. You have to get with it. Wait, what? Whatever. What do we want? Not being the
Cooper, maybe a plate of spaghetti.
Listen.
Jump in there with
Oh my God, I love you two so much.
Get in there.
Women we were trained to be objects of desire. We're also agents of desire.
Right.
That's what the book's about. I think when you are in touch with your desires, you are in the driver's seat of your life.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Francesca. That is
God, you're so good.
You are so good. Okay. I think we have time for one more live question. Mary Kay, will you pick one?
Yeah. Here's one from Diane Shapiro. She wants to know if Francesca has a favorite genre in both reading and writing books.
And I want Lisa to answer it too.
Yeah.
God.
I can't pick a favorite genre. I read all genres: thrillers, romance, literary, horror, supernatural, magical realism, love it all. I love genre benders. I try to write genre benders. I try to write a book you haven't read yet in any form. So no, I read really widely and I draw inspiration really widely.
What she said. I gotta tell you, the books you ladies write, I love the friends and fiction genre. Okay.
Yes.
That's great.
If
From the
only there
heart,
was that genre.
That's the genre, man.
That much.
You do have to shop all the time.
Oh my gosh, I wish we had 2 hours. Honey. I want to come to whatever beach house you're at right now.
Oh, we should. Let me tell you what's going on. We came here for the weekend. Like the house next door is under construction for the next 2 weeks. We're here for 2 weeks. That's great. Hurricane. Hey, not a problem.
You know what? We're here together, and that's all that matters.
Right.
I hope you have some wine.
I hope you have some good laughs together. Y'all are amazing.
Always.
Okay, both of you stick around, but we have to do that announcement thing. So super quick for all of you watching and listening, we want to tell you to rush out and buy your copy of Full Bloom right this very second. And the perfect place to do that is the Friends and Fiction Bookshop on bookshop.org, where you not only get it at a discount, but all your purchases there support our show, our guests. It's 3D and indie stores nationwide.
So nice.
And do not forget to visit friendsandfiction.com for details on our show schedule, coming in-person events, and links to our merch store, our Substack newsletter sign up, and the award-winning Friends and Fiction official book club with Brenda and Lisa. Speaking of the book club, join them live on Monday, September 15th, my son's 39th birthday.
Oh my gosh.
I know. September 15th at 7 p.m. for a discussion, Eastern, of course, for a discussion of August Lane with author Regina Black.
And speaking of our Substack, you can read all our free weekly posts on the Substack website or app, or subscribe for free to get them directly in your inbox. And if you upgrade to our paid Substack, which costs just $5 a month, you'll have access to deeper dives with all our weekly show guests like Francesca, plus monthly roundtable discussions like the recent ones that Meg did with 11 crime fiction writers and 12 debut novelists, plus bonus Q&As with additional authors like the recent ones we ran with Daniel Kraus, Christine Pride, and Joe Piazza. If you enjoyed tuning in for our weekly author interviews, this is a big way you can support us for about $1 a week. So check us out at friendsandfiction.substack.com.
Okay, now for a little bit more fun. Francesca, we talked about how your novel is so immersive. I wanted to go to New York and find that brownstone. I did go to the village on my recent trip.
Yes.
Wait, no, I'm not supposed to ask that.
Yes.
Oh, I am supposed to ask that? Okay. How, if you could live in any book at all, what book would you choose?
Gosh, I've never thought about that. Books are pretty dramatic places. I don't know if any of them would be peaceful.
You don't have to live there forever.
Oh,
Visit
okay.
maybe.
Just want to maybe drop in.
Yeah.
Or, you know what? Or a movie too.
Or a musical.
Yeah.
Right?
You do not want to live in your mom's latest book. It would be a stressful place.
I just go right to Tuscany.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, maybe Unraveling of Julia. I love a good Gothic villa. I mean, what's not to love about
And the
that?
food is excellent, so it's got
That's
the
true.
Yeah, I could use an international trip. I want to go to Italy for sure.
How about you, Lisa? What book would you pick if you could?
I'll choose a movie since you said about The Talented Mr. Ripley is a movie I watch every time it's on.
Yeah.
And I
Want to live in that movie?
See what
I
I mean?
want
Like,
to
it's
live
so
in that
tense.
movie. I want to that whole atmospheric, scary, but also sexual.
I can handle it because I'm
It's
grown
sexual.
up. We're entering a weird territory. But you could live with Jude Law and Gwyneth Paltrow in that movie in that sun-soaked San Remo before the sociopath arrives. Then
Pre-sociopath.
yeah.
Now
I
we
feel
know
like
a lot about you guys. So yeah.
Right. It's very scary.
That should just be a rule of thumb for anywhere we want to live before the sociopath arrives,
Yeah,
right?
right.
It should be a prerequisite.
That's every day.
Sociopath, you pack your bag.
Yes.
Francesca, where can we catch you on the road and where can we catch up with you online?
You know what? This is such a beautiful swan song for me. So sadly,
Oh, right. Of course, the book's
last
already been out
my
for a
tour,
while.
this is
Yeah.
it. But you know what? I'm in this. I'm only as introverted as you can be to be a novelist and not hate it. I write to connect with people.
That's
So
awesome.
like I said, book clubs, I would love to Zoom with you. Readers, I would love to get to know you over Instagram or Facebook or wherever. I'm trying to make a TikTok account because I got hacked and locked out of my actual TikTok account, but I'm working on making a new one. But I'm all about that connection. I love hearing what you think about the story. And so that's a great way. And then, the next book tour, that's my hope. I've got them working on the next book, too soon to talk about, but I really can't wait to hug every possible reader.
Well, we're huggers, and you guys are huggers too.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, we're going to sign off from the Friends and Fiction genre, which we are going to include you in. And Francesca, thank you. And Lisa, thank you for popping in. Thank you so much for joining us. This was such a fun Friends and Fiction show.
It really was.
Thank you so much for making this. We jumped up and down when I heard you made this the August pick. I'm so grateful to all of you. I couldn't admire you and look up to you any more than I do. And this is just, this is such a pinch me moment. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who joined us tonight. I'm just so excited. Let's keep in touch and be friends.
You're a delight.
Guys, we love you.
Love you.
All right. Well, everyone, be sure to tune in next week when Patti and Kristin will welcome Christina Baker Klein and Ann Burt to discuss their new novel, Please Don't Lie. That show will air on the Friends and Fiction Facebook page and YouTube channel on Wednesday, August 27th at 7 p.m. Eastern. And it will be published to our podcast for your listening pleasure on Friday, August 29th.
Thanks to all of you for being here with us. We'll see you next week.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. You can join us every week on Facebook or YouTube, where our live show airs on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram. We're so glad you're here.